Hello and welcome back to another edition of Hollywood On-Scene Videos. I'm Rebecca Varon, I'll be your host today, and I'm sitting here with Mark Pirro of Pirromount Productions. And he is a writer, producer, director, etc., extraordinaire. And today we're going to be talking about his film. Your film.
My film?
Yes, we're going to be talking about your film and many, many of your films, actually.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
And so tell me, give me a little introduction here. We're going to go into a role in just a minute.
Okay, and we're talking about Colorblinded.
Colorblinded.
Which is the movie that we did last year, and I actually released it earlier this year. It's about a black girl that turns white. She sort of has a relationship with a white guy, and she kind of wonders if white guys have a different feeling towards white women as they do as opposed to black women. So she goes to bed one night wondering if he really cares for her. She wakes up the next morning and she's this beautiful blonde. And ultimately she goes to explain what happened. She doesn't even know what happened, but when she goes to see him, he doesn't recognize her and he starts flirting with her, thinking that she's somebody else. So she doesn't tell him who she is. And for the rest of the movie, she's sort of deceiving him, trying to find out why he's so fascinated with her this way.
Right. Right. Yeah. But what happens is that ultimately he becomes really disenchanted by her as a blonde because she comes off as this egomaniac.
She starts getting into herself too. I mean, she starts thinking that she gets out of traffic tickets, she gets away with a lot more, and at one point she basically says, "Well, I don't need you anymore either.
Right.
The way I look, I can get any guy like that." And he tells her to take a hike.
Well, the scene we're going to go into just now is the scene where Tess, who is her best friend, who's fabulous. The two of them are telemarketing, and they're having this discussion about whether or not race is playing an issue in the relationship.
Right.
And we're going to go into that right now.
I mean, haven't you noticed how white men treat white women differently? Hell, even black men treat white women differently. Phil did it, you can bet Dave's gonna do it too.
Well, Dave treats all women the same.
Bullshit. If some gorgeous blonde bimbo came jiggling her way up to him, he'd cling to her like boogers under the table.
Oh, boogers under the table.
Disgusting line. Who thought of that?
There's so many hilarious lines in this film. She is so funny, that actress. Where did you find her?
Verta Bridges. She actually came, well, when I was holding auditions, she drove one of the other actresses to the audition. She wasn't originally there to audition.
Is that so? Okay.
And she said, "Can I read for one of these parts?" And she did and blew us all away. I mean, I have to say, Verta Bridges, she's probably the most professional actress I've ever worked with. I mean, and when you're working on low-budget films, you run the gambit. I mean, you've seen them all. So, no, she was great. She was very, very, she knew her lines, she hit her marks, and she gave the film a quality that I don't think we would have gotten without her.
Yeah, she's very natural, but stingingly funny. She seems to come out of left field all the time.
Yeah, those lines were just so incredibly cute. I don't know where she got them.
The writing, it's just amazing, brilliant.
Amazing. Yeah, what do you say?
Well, tell me how the film got together.
How it got together?
Yeah, this is how did you put? What was the inception? How did you put this film together? I assume it's a little bit more complex than some of your previous films, which we'll get into a little bit later.
It's probably more, I want to say, mainstream as far as concept goes. I mean, it's not about a guy that turns queer when the moon rises. It's not about a vampire with tiny fangs. I mean, it's as weird as the story is, it's based in a real world. Your people are believable. Your actors are believable. It's not as much a cartoon as my earlier films. So as I was putting this one together, I wanted to kind of keep it in a real setting, a realistic setting, and that's different for me. I don't know if that answers your question. I don't even remember what your question was. But no, as far as putting this one together goes, it was basically, you start with the writing of the script, and then you go into the casting, and then you start getting into pre-production, and you just go through the whole process, just like everything else.
Are any of the actors here actors that you worked with on your previous films, or did you start afresh?
Most of them were new. We put in like Jim Bruce, who was the restaurant with the waiter. Remember the guy that comes up to me?
Yeah.
He's been in every film I've done.
No smoking allowed.
Yeah.
I believe I'm smoking softly.
Quietly, yes.
Quietly, right?
He's been in every film. He's sort of like my good luck charm, I guess. I mean, whatever charm. He's in everything. But other than that, I don't remember if I used any other of the older actors. They'll only work for free so many times.
Right.
I think that's part of it. And then you just sort of have to find a new crop. And there was a guy named Ron Curtis, who was one of the associate producers, who was also in the movie theater scene, the guy in the back.
Oh, right, he was telling the show.
Who I've known him for 20 years. I used him in the very first short film I ever did. I did this movie called Buns, 20 years ago, and he was in that, and now he's in this one. So he's gone full circle. You see, they start with Pirromount, they end with Pirromount.
Right, right.
But that's about it, I think.
Great. Okay, we're going to go into another scene.
Okay.
Here we go.
Oh, right then.
This is, for our audience, this is the scene where Melanie has changed colors, but she doesn't believe it. She believes that
would
she's
you?
having a psychotic. No, I don't think I'd believe it either. She thinks she's having a psychotic breakdown, and so she calls Tess to come over and validate whatever it is she's going through. And here we go.
Here we go.
Okay now, Farrah, I've had enough of this. You better produce Melanie in 3 seconds or I am walking.
Jesus, Tess, what can I do to convince you I'm Melanie?
Walk through East LA at 3 a.m.
What if I were to tell you something only I would know? You like men with hairy backs.
Oh, lucky guess.
Your first boyfriend liked to pee in the pool.
A lot of men do
He
that.
did it from the diving board.
Look, I've had enough of this.
Sometimes during sex you like to be tied up and called Toby.
I don't do that anymore. Melanie?
Yes!
You look so frosty.
I know.
That's so funny. You were just telling me about the music, how you did that electronically or through the computer, and it really adds to the humor.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I mean, this whole movie was posted in one little room in my house, and when I discovered that you can write music by computer, it blew me away. I mean, I found this program called Orchestrator Plus that you plug into your computer, and you basically pick up the notes that you like and put them where you want on the scale, and then you assign an instrument to it. Like, make this sound like a violin, make this sound like a piano, whatever. And I use the name Marky Elfman, by the way, for the musical score, because I didn't want to take my own credit. I mean, it's like my name would be all over this thing, which it almost is anyway. So it says...
So there is no Marky Elfman.
There is no Marky Elfman. No, that's the name I'm using as the composer. And but it's great, because you can basically make it sound like you can write music. And in essence, you can. I mean, I couldn't write it like a real thing, but the computer does that too. It'll take your notes, turn it into an actual score that you could then give to a musician if you wanted to have it played by real instruments. So it's like, it's getting to a point where almost anybody can do anything if you just have the equipment.
Right.
Kind of like sex. Anyway.
Although it's more fun, at least with an audience.
Okay then.
I didn't say that.
No, of course not. I did.
So let's go back in time. Let's talk about how you started and some of your other wacky films. Polish Vampire in Burbank.
Okay, yeah, wacky. Yeah, what do you want to know?
Death Row Game Show. Just how did you get
weird,
into
wacky
it?
stuff.
And I know that you sort of figured out that you didn't want to be a producer that was always in development and never actually producing something. So how did you get going?
Okay, well, say that part again about the producing thing.
All these producers are, I have this and this in development, and they never do a thing. They always.
I suppose, yeah. I don't know, because I've been doing this so long. Years and years ago, I used to do what everybody does. You go out there, you try to find financing, and you try to get projects going, and most of the time you're not getting anything going. You're just, you're working on getting the money for the film. So I started shooting these little Super 8 things. Polish Vampire in Burbank was the first 90-minute Super 8 film that I had ever attempted to do, and it cost about $2,500 over a period of 2 years. So it's not as painful when you're spending money that drawn out.
Right.
And you get friends and people that to just participate, and we put this thing together. And it was like, when that was done, we sold it. You got it on the USA Television Network, got it sold on video, and I was like, well, gee, that was easy. Let's do it again.
Yeah,
and
you were fabulously
did it again
successful
and
with
again.
that one.
Well, comparatively speaking, it's tougher to sell a film today than it ever was, because back then, home video was kind of new. It was in the early 80s, and to get a new film sold on the home video market was kind of a novelty, so you could sell anything almost. And nowadays, everybody with a camcorder has got a movie to sell, know. So it's like, okay, that might be a little tougher, but so then, I did a couple of other projects, and then we got approached by Crown International Pictures that gave us the money to do a 35mm film, and then we did another one, and then Colorblinded, which is the least expensive movie I've ever made. It cost less than Polish Vampire, if you can believe that. It was
Don't tell anybody.
Who watches this show? There's 2 people in Pacoima.
Everybody watches don't you watch me? Don't you watch me?
Yeah, right. 2 in the morning.